So this question is to everyone. Just to start off with, I think Kim, Anaita, Anurag, Amrita, and Pulkith. If you, there, I've been talking to people and recently, and everyone tells me that they're not an influencer; they're a content creator. Can you please explain difference to me to start off with, Amrita?
According to me, I think a content creator is someone that can make content out of everything, whereas an influencer is someone that, I wouldn't say niche, but is more picky and choosy about what they want to influence their audience with. And I'd give an example between the two. A content creator is someone that will make memes on their life or whatever situations they're in or struggles, etc. And wherever they are, everything is content. Whereas an influencer is kind of sticking to promoting brands or telling stories or experiential things and how they lead their lives or whatever brand conversations they want to lead and bring to their audience. I think that's what it would be.
Thank you. Do you want to add anything to it, Kim, Anaita?
Hello? Sorry. I actually don't get the difference so clearly because I feel even as an influencer, you are creating content. So I think we're just creators. It doesn't matter, you don't need another tag.
I like to call them people of influence or person of influence, and I think that pretty much then covers a lot more. I think neither means any different. I just think it's more about the positioning or the optics of the terminology where you tend to feel like somewhere there's a difference between a content creator and influencer, and I feel these are just self-made mental things that people of a certain talent come up with for themselves. These are, as human beings, we're constantly putting limitations and roadblocks to our own very progress. So I think these are just internal boundaries that are created which actually don't mean anything. The fact is that this is a wonderful tribe of people and talent that are very self-made, that do amazing stuff, that are pretty much so self-sufficient, and I'm always amazed when I meet creators, influencers, people of influence, because they really are just so self-driven. And the rest of it, I mean, it's like I said, just optics or personal triggers, or I don't personally see any difference in any.
Let him talk.
Is that going to happen frequently? Then I'm going to lose. But thank you so much for having me here. I may have a very contrary view to most of the things. It's probably a personality problem. Still, I'm just put the caveat out. I think what we've all defined are human beings. The definition of creation is, I think, what I would completely agree with Anaita, right? It's the process of creation. In my opinion, a brand is a creator as well. So, I mean, Pulkith, Shivas, many, Red Bull, I could name so many brands who in fundamental terms are creators. So creator is not a human being always. The influence is a process. So a brand could influence, so can a person. I think what you're doing is you're influencing with your storytelling, with your format, with your conversation. That's, I think, the fundamental difference between creators and influence. But a creator could be a tangible, human, non-tangible person. So that's the big difference in the way I see it.
My question's to you now, Pulkith. Of course, adding to that, when we were speaking earlier, you mentioned about the person being a person of authority. And so for taking that as an example, how do you think the world has evolved to include influencer marketing? From a brand perspective, what are you actually looking for? Sorry.
All right. So, I would say influencer marketing is becoming part of the media mix, right? Traditionally, when we used to look at the media plans, we used to look at TV, we used to look at print, we used to look at radio. So here it's found its own place, right? But clearly, is influencer marketing going to take over traditional marketing? The answer is no. It just depends on the brand's life cycle. Like, if you're in a mass category, you definitely need traditional media because you need to gather the reach, you need to gather the GRPs. But when you go to the niche brands, which are like the brands which are like the international brands, maybe not with that big a budget to get into the run of big TV campaigns, influencer marketing really helps, right? But the question is, it can do good to you or it can actually do harm to you. It has to be very like, thought through who is the credible influencer you want to work with, because it cannot be that the brand is with an influencer, he sleeps one night and the next night he is with somebody else, right? There has to be commitment from both sides. Equally, for the influencer, for him it's the earning, it's the living, he has to have a commitment from the brand, right? So we've got Anaita here, who's the authority. I will never say she's an influencer. It will be an insult to her. It'll be an insult.
I just wield influence.
Yes.
I said I'm not an influencer, I just wield
No,
influence.
I'll tell you, you're the authority in what you do. So people follow you for who you are and what you've done over years, and that gives you the authority. So, no, your word coming from you in itself has had its own influence. So, to me, she is in her authority. Whatever she does, she doesn't need to be qualified as an influencer and a promo post. So, it's the lifestyle. It is what she is. So, to me, exactly coming to the last point on this, influencer is important. Depends how you use it, and they both, traditional and influencer marketing, will coexist, but it has to have its own purpose and means.
So this brings me to the question of obviously authenticity, right? You mentioned very much Anaita, who she is, whether she's offline, online, everything.
Or dancing with him till 3 in the morning.
Okay, we need to record that and put it up. But Anaita, tell me something. You've, done the whole print, and now you've moved very seamlessly into digital. But from your editorial experience, how do you think the whole marketing, advertising shift has happened? And what do you think? Did you have any guidelines, etc.? Do you want to talk a little bit about the shift?
Sure.
And what the differences are?
So I think, firstly, the shift for me was accidental. It was never intentional. It still isn't. I just put what I like. And which is why I guess it's more content creator, because it's so friggin' haphazard. One day it's a dog, one day it's an ice cream, and sometimes it's fashion. Whereas editorially, everything was very planned and curated. The term curator is very popular today, but it's actually things we've done for the last 20 years. We created stories for other people to follow. We created aspirational images. But everything was done instinctually, right? It wasn't, no voice of God was saying, floral print is the big thing. You just followed your instinct. And I think what I do today is I just follow my instinct much stronger. I don't care what people think. They may hate what I'm wearing. They may like it. But as long as they feel something, that's all I want to do.
Amrita, do you want to add anything to that? How do you think from, like I said, when I first met you, I knew you as a designer and I just loved your style. But you've also progressed very naturally into this role. And I know you work with a lot of brands. So how did you move into this? How do you remain authentic to yourself?
I think when I started, there was only, the term was bloggers at the time. And bloggers had blogs. They wrote about their trips and their experiences, or what they were styling what with. There were, full-fledged blogs. And at that time, nobody was doing video in India, just styling videos or anything. Now, of course, it's all over. But I just wanted to communicate. Being a designer, the feedback that I would get from my clients and their relatives was, oh, but it only looks good on you. And I wanted to simplify what the bloggers at that time were doing, which was, there was a lot of imagery and there was a lot of over-stylized imagery. So there was jackets being worn with like t-shirts with like 100 other things, which honestly Bombay doesn't allow you that, the weather doesn't allow you that. And I just wanted to simplify it. So if it was a shirt and a pair of pants, then that's all you needed. It's all right. So I literally just started on that and wanted to communicate that we can keep it simple. And it took on. And I think that the thing to stay authentic is to first find your voice and what you want to communicate in whichever area of influencing you're in, whether it's beauty, whether it's wellness, whether it's lifestyle, parenting, fashion, everything. You just want to stay true to what comes naturally to you, what do you want to communicate, and how's that voice different from the next one? Because everybody has a voice today. So how's that different? Why are 100K people following you? Why are 1 million following you? And why are they continuing to stay there? And it doesn't happen overnight. It happens with a lot of trial and error, and we will get there eventually. Yeah.
Amrita, just to add to that, you just mentioned that there are a lot of voices out there. Almost everyone is an influencer, content creators. In fact, India, according to Ipsos Mori, has 2.2 million influencers, and it's just going to keep growing and growing. My question is to you, Kim, a Dharma Cornerstone. How do you kind of find the right talent to work with?
So thank you for the question, and it's not an easy road because, like I said, influencers come already set up, right? It's different to finding a new talent where you're able to sort of have a word from the get-go. But here you're meeting a person that's already done it, knows a lot about it, and has a sort of sense, a great sense of self. So we tend to look at people that have potential outside of the digital landscape. So what can we do? Where are the roads that we can add our infrastructure, our muscle, and help them grow in those places? And where are they sitting now? What are the weaknesses? What are the strengths? How do we sort of, as a team, add support? Because it's unlike an actor, an influencer doesn't need a lot except themselves and the equipment that goes out with them. But so we look at a large support system for them, future plans. And if we feel that a certain person has potential beyond the digital landscape and we're able to sort of provide those services, then yeah, those are people that we like to invest in and have on our team.
Perfect. So now just like to kind of understand, Anurag, you connect a lot with Big Bang Social, you connect a lot of content creators and brands. Do you want to tell me a little bit about it, and how do you, what is the purpose of connecting, where have you seen brands, the kind of content creators they want, the content creators, what kind of brands they want? Do you want to tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. It's changed in the last time. I've been in the creative business for over a decade. I was just telling Kim before we got on stage, when 2014 or when we co-founded a company, I used to basically look at one of her digital brands, right? The journey has changed at platforms, right? I think the need to connect is create. It's not for the creator to connect with the brand. It's very important to understand whether the brand is connecting to the audience. The creator is a means of reaching to the right audience. I think that was the core thought of our tech build that we started a couple of years back, which is now a very established global proprietary tool. It's a simple algorithm, right, which helps a brand literally go down to every single marketing funnel to understand whether they're speaking to the right target audience, the right age group, in the right cities. You mentioned that it's erupting in the numbers of people that we're speaking to. So in the pyramid of marketing, whether you're using it for awareness or you're creating consideration or you're creating commerce out of it, you need to connect to the audience before you're picking and choosing. I think fundamentally the problem in the last few years has been that most brands first look for the people who are creators or influencers, then they decide the communication. And then they figure out what the final result is. It's actually the flip. You first figure out who you're speaking to. You backtrack it to who's the best person you can use to speak to. I mean, Pulkith spoke about traditional media, right? How has it been? It's no different. It's a simple cycle. If you pick up a GEC or you pick up a sports genre, you pick up any of them, they respectively speak to a specific bunch of audience, and that's why the medium is being used. It's very, very simple. If you look at a creator, whether it's a podcast or YouTube or Instagram, you're picking up a format which that specific audience is viewing, listening, or consuming. So it's simple format of understanding your attention marketing and where it's going. That's a precision that you can build with this, which is why I'm a big advocate of this, because you can reach so many more markets and so many more people, because it's just phenomenal how this content gets, how the content travels. So I think that's where authenticity and tech comes into play for us.
Adding to that, Pulkith, we were talking earlier about what exactly Anurag said as well, like they, adding to your point about influencers and content creators being just another way of media. But from a brand's point of view, how do you kind of look at when you decide the content creators you want to work with, and what are you looking to get back from them?
Okay, so there's no dearth of influencers, to be honest. So for us, when we're looking at an influencer, we really need to know who he's connecting with or who she's connecting with. What's the voice, as you said? What's the voice? What's the purpose of that very person, right? It doesn't matter if you have 13,000 followers or you have 25,000. If you make an impact or you engage with your audience in a smaller or a larger number, that's what matters to us, right? Likewise, influencers also need to really figure out what is their niche, which is the stream they want to really make their voice counted for. Otherwise, they will have no shelf life. Somebody today, somebody tomorrow, right? If you say my thing is skincare, then you have to maybe rather study about it, may have credibility on what you say. The next time when you put out a post, there are questions which are pertaining to the post, not puncturing you, who are you to really write that post, right? So to me, the authenticity, the ownership of what you write, what you endorse, what you do, has to be integrated. And it has to come from the brand when we sign, and likewise.
This brings me back to you, Anaita. Again, we were discussing earlier in terms of advertising, traditional advertising and marketing, and we were discussing about the different kinds of ways that, you've obviously done advertorials for magazines as well, and now you see the whole influx of influencers, and every other influencer is pushing a product. How do you think traditional marketing and influencer marketing is different?
So I think editorially, of course, we all had guidelines that certain brands needed to be covered or they were a sponsor of an event, but the creativity still stayed with us. We still own the way to create it or present it. Whereas I feel with influencers and content creators, very often that is taken away. They're literally told how to do it and it looks like an ad. So there's not much of them in it. So also by just calling yourself an influencer, you're not one. You have to actually earn that love, earn that respect. So I feel that's changed, and that's a bit sad, because if you're only doing things for a price, it really has no credibility. I feel, yes, please earn, make money, but do things that you love, you identify with, try them, don't just blindly follow. So I think that's the difference. We still had some creative sanctity, and I feel a lot of that is taken away. And I do understand it's needed, because not everyone can afford Deepika or Shahrukh. They do need to work with other people. And I commend the fact that there are so many people like Amrita who I follow, and I love seeing what she's doing, and I'm like, send me that, and that's what makes it so exciting. I love the fact that it's made fashion so democratic. People with different views get to show their styling, their ideas. I believe it's a huge beauty revolution, which I'm not a part of, but it's amazing. I think it's a great space to be. And I feel the lockdown kind of brought this attention out. Earlier we were stuck with traditional means like magazines, television, radio. We didn't have a choice. Also, we were we had to see it on the go. Here we were home, and we were looking for some kind of connect. And I think that's when all these people became really huge, and they were almost like in our bedrooms, in our beds, and we were romancing them, and it was fun.
So it's a simple plug. If a brand wants to sell something to an icon, they basically speak to her. That's exactly how the audience...
Yeah, now you guys know. So Amrita, what do you have to say about that you're influencing Anaita?
Oh God, I think sorry. My month is made. Anaita saying that, but I know what she's saying about when it all happened in lockdown, because everyone had sort of had to shut down, and everyone looked to influencers, and that is actually personally when I started monetizing it. I just had a baby, and I was like, if I'm going to give 2 hours of my time in the day to this, then I need to start, because before that this wasn't my chosen career. I'm a designer and I have my own label, and this was something I just started on the side, and that's when I was like, okay, now I think we need to sort of put more value into this monetarily and just put it out there. But it's what Anaita said, that I think if it connects on a level where, which is what I've been told, that it feels like if my friend is telling me about this brand that does bags or this brand that does beautiful chicken curry in Bombay, which a lot of people don't know about. That's what it feels like. Oh, you know what? This is the brand. This is great. They do great stuff. Check them out. It started with that. Obviously, I know what you mean about how everyone's going the same route, and that's what I meant about just finding your voice.
No, but that's what I feel like. That's why people like you stand out, because you're not.
Yeah.
I think
You
that's
know?
where a lot of management comes into play, and I'm sure Kim will probably echo. I think that's where people like us have built brands over a decade, right? That's where we become the filter, because if we have to keep the voice authentic, we have to ensure that the content creativity is right up there. I think that's what we protect our talent and creators from, right? And building a bridge with, brands. I mean, I can quote, because, it's already out. We created an amazing IP with, Purno and team with Pulkith spearheading it. It's called Valentine's True Music, right? I think the creative liberty that we got to create the kind of music that we did over 8 different cities, over 20 or 30 different workshops. I think the core thought was, can we upskill and build the next generation of indie musicians, right? And because the creative liberty that was given by the brand, who to the true felt that this is needed as a brand to help the new musicians flourish. Today, one of them is on the top 100 Apple playlist, right? In global levels. We did more than 119 million streams across the music that we created. So I think when creativity comes together from a brand, and there is an authentic intent to really, really go down and create great stuff, it can be done, to be very, very honest with you. It's easily defined whether you're making an ad or you're doing something for the reason that content is the king always. And I think that brands, thank you so much, but that brands really support us for. So yeah.
Just to add, if you have to go to a creator with a brief to what needs to be done, then you go to an agency, right? If you're coming to the creator, you have to give them the liberty to do it and add a dimension to your brand. Otherwise, it's just going to a traditional agency and say, this is what I want, this is the post should look like. So then it's a brief. And you're not utilizing the real potential of the creator or probably the conversation. So suddenly, if the conversation is not the real conversation the influencer puts out, it can be just called off. You will have no engagement. It will be just scrolled. It's just one thumb up and it's just gone. So we need to respect the voice. We need to respect what they do and do it in their style. So that will add.
But Pulkith, it starts that way. I'm sure the intention is there. Then there's some puns says, oh, but the logo has to come. No, but you have to say this line. But this is our tagline. So it starts organically, but it ends pretty advertorially.
You're right. Yeah. I'm with you.
I feel that people should respect people's creativity and let them do it. Say, here's the brief, karke aa jao.
Exactly.
That's where DC and Big Bang comes in. We're
So
the bad
when-
cops. We're like, hello, no, hello, call me.
To be
Hello,
honest-
aisa nahi hoga.
To be honest, when we were working with Big Bang, we said, look, we are not the authority of music. We don't understand the live space. We don't understand what is the motivation of the musician. What I know is if my brand stands for a philosophy, can you bring that out? That's it. That was the only requirement we had. So that brought out so much of authenticity in the output and therefore the results. Right. Likewise, what we do on Shivers, we don't say like we ham and tong, we will be everywhere. We say if we can be participant in anything to do with luxury in this country, we will find ourselves successful. That's it. Therefore, we are sitting here in the 4th year of LLW, and many things we've done on brands like Alchemy, which is bringing different facets of luxury together. So our purpose is to be there in that space. That's it.
So, but how do you think with content creators, obviously a lot of, and I know everyone says that, content, it doesn't matter your size. in terms of you could have 100,000 followers or you could have 1,000 dedicated followers. But at the end of the day, brands do want that numbers as well. So how do you think that works and how does that play out? Because at the end of the day, I do kind of agree with Anaita to a large extent that, okay, while when you give it to, like, when you're doing an IP, it's, let's get the ethos of the brand out. But when you're doing an individual conversation with an influencer or a bunch of influencers, I'm sure you have guidelines as well.
So let's go back in the days we used to watch TV, right? So there was TV which was common to all. Then came HD, right? So what we did was we switched on to HD and we could really calculate the households which could have HD, and then you could profile the kind of people. So clearly, like when you look at a media plan, it depends on which brand you're doing it for and what is the purpose. If it is awareness, then you don't want to be surgical, right? You want to just put it out to as many number of people to see it. Again, it goes back to what is the purpose of your media campaign. Is it sustenance, or it is awareness, or it is consideration? So depending on that, you will pick up the right influencer or whosoever the creator you would want to work with. So it will really define from the brief and the purpose of your brief who you pick up. Sometimes you might, if you're doing a new campaign, you want more and more people to see it. So you might want to go behind the numbers, but that will be a tactical thing. If it cannot be like, it should hit out. So there will be more miss than actually helping the brand. It's a waste otherwise.
In that sense then, obviously, there are also, what has happened now, obviously, is with influencer marketing, and the 2.2 million influencers, the ones with a certain set number, they are constantly pushing out brands, constantly. It kind of leads to the commoditization of content creators, of influencers. How do you think in a world where, content creators are just constantly pushing out, how do you be authentic? Because at the end of the day, for a lot of people, this is also their main job. So how do you kind of balance authenticity? How do you prevent, maybe I'll ask it one by one. Let's just start with how do you kind of stay authentic to yourself and the brand that you're sponsoring?
I mean, I'll probably take that. One, brands, Pulkith touched upon it, right? That a common problem is that a brand feels that if an influencer or a creator is working with me today, he may work with someone else tomorrow. That question is reversed to the brand. It's most important to create brand evangelists and not just engage with them one-off. And you can use them as literally your creative heads. So if you engage with them for a much longer period of time, you let them stay authentic. They become almost your brand voice. They feel a lot more deeper about your brand and the brand characteristics, right? And then you can do a storytelling which is much, much more engaged. It's much deeper than just doing a one-odd post or one-odd collab. And if you see there are too many brands that's being spoken to, that's good news, by the way. Just letting you know, because revenge shopping and revenge impulse buying has been the fray after lockdown. Also, I think people have also figured multiple things on the internet which they didn't look for, right? And a lot of that they didn't need, but they've bought. But if you pick that at a very sustained fashion, I think some of the brands have done this beautifully. And now you can connect a person, you look at a person and you can think about the brand, right? That's your ultimate win. So if you can do that, you don't have to worry about authenticity, getting too much of commoditization. And come on, if you've built a clout, you've built an influence, it has to be monetized. And I'm very, very clear about it, right? That if you can't monetize it, then you're doing it for just communicating something. It's great, then it's fine, but it's going to hit a ceiling after a point. Because you look around and you see people doing so many brilliant things. One of the creators this time hosted the Met Gala. So people are like, looking at people do this. And there is a direct desire and ambition. All of us as human beings have ambitions, right? You feel that you can do better. You stay true to it, but being a little, monetizable, this doesn't hurt it.
I think that And absolutely right, and I totally agree. But I also think that's an ideal situation where a brand sort of takes on a long-term commitment and vice versa, and then they're sort of integrated and speaking each other's values. But that doesn't happen a lot of the times. And brands still traditionally like to take on that relationship with a larger celebrity, a film star, sports star, so on. So I think for a creator, my opinion is that when they're sort of very transparent with the audience in their organic content and they're able to show their authenticity through the content that's not branded, and they're able to understand how to seamlessly, weave a brand into the story that they normally tell, whether it's through comedy or it's through dance or whatever their medium of expression is. I think then the audience is also more sort of malleable to understanding and not so impatient to scroll when they feel like, oh, this is a branded partnership. This seems like a peg to me. This person that I'm following is trying to monetize off my attention on them. So I think when their day-to-day organic content is sort of more real and a follower sort of feels invested in their lives, when they keep that clean, then a follower becomes a super follower, super fan, and then is with them on every part of their journey, even their success or the monetization of their career. So yeah, I think that's an important aspect.
So for me, it will be a long-term relationship, right? It's not one night stand, as I mentioned previously. So it has to be a commitment from both sides, right? So if you look at back in the days when we used to sign celebrities, there were celebrities you used to hedge on, right? You used to pick up to say, okay, these are the guys I will hedge, probably grow with them in the next 5 years, and these are the stars of tomorrow. So likewise, we might have to look at creators, go through the journey with them. It will be miss with some, and you might make big success with few. So if you stay with them, support them in their journey, and the loyalties are on both sides, I think it will be a good mix.
I do feel that, right now where we're standing and maybe we're still like evolving in the way influencer marketing, brands are working with content creators and all. I feel like the more we start betting on the younger ones, like in this, if someone's got a small following but they have a dedicated audience, they have an audience who follows them through their thick and thin, I think that's an interesting...
I mean, it's music to my ears in the true sense, right? Banking and upskilling the next set, right, is going to be a huge part of what we focus on in the next few years, because it's very interesting that we all sit here and think about, who's making authentic content, who's doing well, but who's actually helping them do well is a big question, right? We started the academy about less than a year back, right? And the sole purpose was that can we find these budding talent and artists across the country and help them groom. Very proud, I mean, we found one, talent all the way in Odisha. His name is Sam Rapper, big deal. He's one of the only guys who raps in Odia, right? Who would have thought that that's really a big deal? We recently launched an anthem with Pepsi with him, and very soon he will be actually performing on a global stage. He was mentored by Rahman sir, he was on the Rolling Stones cover. And now this guy who, used to be almost like an outcast because he was just about rapping only in Odia, has now become a main stage. He's working with, government of Odia and, Odisha, and he's creating anthems. I think music has then taken that space to say it doesn't need a specific language, and his talent has kind of been built over the last year. I think we would want to replicate that with hundreds and thousands of them, because that's where we're building a very interesting bridge between what tomorrow could be needed as the next set of content creators, and they could literally come from any part of the country, right? So that's the dream, I would say, ideal dream. Yeah.
It's a dream for all of us. Kim, you mentioned that, you also look at offline opportunities if they can. Do you want to tell me how does that play in? Because when, say, for example, someone like him, someone who's in Orissa is rapping with digital, has a larger presence, how would you take someone like that and give them that platform via DCA, for example? Not that I'm taking away your time.
I'm not going to take his example. I'm going to leave it to try to address, and congratulations and a great job on that, very inspirational. So no, absolutely, and that's exactly what I was talking about. So firstly, I do believe, and at DCA we rep talent with the highest numbers on the gram, so we're talking millions, and collectively over 100 million is what we're able to sort of provide to a brand with just 2 or 3 talent. And that's wonderful, and that's just a huge achievement, right? And a great validation. But I also do believe personally it is the age now, the coming age of the micro and nano influencer, because I think even brands understand the value of a niche creator that speaks specifically to exactly the group that they want to. So, and you've proved that point just with the whole Orissa example that you gave. And sorry, do you want to say something? And also to answer your question, yes, we do look at talent exactly like this, that maybe doing something specifically quite small and concentrated or regional in its approach, but has the propensity to move out. And I think in terms of strategy, you spot a talent, you feel they have something that they could do larger than what they do, or they could do something that they're doing better in a better sort of landscape or environment with better infrastructure, and that's how we would sort of move about with it.
No, sorry, I was saying that every talent has a trajectory, right? If someone's next stage is to become an entrepreneur, right? Or an actor, or, you know, someone completely different, which is not just about creating content, that flow has to also continue happening. So someone has to take that place, right? Someone has to do what we would maybe 10 years back. So that funnel is not just going to happen on its own, right? It has to be cultivated, it has to be groomed. Because it's a very complicated environment, right? Tech is getting more difficult, platforms are getting more difficult, algorithms and AIs are getting more complicated, right? So everyone just can't wake up, but it's as simple as saying if you have a mobile phone, you can wake up today and you can start thinking, I can be a content creator. And you can think about the voice and genre and authenticity, but it's not that simple because things change every 15 days at the space of that, right? So I think it's
You
not
also
that
have to
simple.
have a lot of patience. Because content creators, creating content, I tried it for half a second and I was like, nope, not for me. I can't do this. But a lot of, like you mentioned, like, you know, the idea is to give content creators the next stage. I think a lot of them are now turning into actors and, you know, like musicians and stuff like that. And hopefully we get more entrepreneurs, more kind of, I think it also allows us to reach to a lot, you know, brands and all of, you know, the audience to reach and understand that there are people living beyond Delhi and Bombay, beyond Bangalore, who have this talent, who can bring it on and stuff like that. So just to kind of, I think we're close to wrapping up. Just I want to understand, what do you guys think is the future of influencer marketing?
I think, and I said that already, I think in terms of the influencer landscape, definitely micro nano influencers, I think AI tech is going to start to play a much larger role in the coming days. I think the industry will get more regularized. I think there'll be a lot more regulations for the brand to interact, for the influencer to interact. Yeah, but I think it's here to stay, and I think it's just going to get a lot more streamlined from where we're at right now.
I'm sure it's here to stay, but there will be a method to the madness, right? Where the influencer and the brand will both be accountable of what they create and what they push out. So it cannot be anything what they create and it goes out. So more, like, you know, guardrails should be there.
I think influencer marketing has also brought about a big change in the sense that while we'll talk about influencers and stuff like that, but it's completely changed the way we shop as well. Sorry, I forgot to, like, you know, but like so how do you think consumers have changed? You've interacted with consumers, obviously you talk a lot about brands, you focus a lot on niche brands as well. And Anaita, you've always been a big fan of, you know, younger homegrown brands. How do you think it has changed the way we shop? Obviously, you know, digital economy is growing, but how has the role of an influencer been specifically vital in the way we've changed here?
I think it's extremely vital. Because what happens is, firstly, not all of us have that much brain space and time to look at everyone that's posting. So then you kind of have people that you love and you see something that they're wearing and you're like, oh, they've put it together, and you quickly go to the website of that designer. You automatically engage with them, you buy. So I think shopping has definitely changed. Because also, when you think about traditionally, magazines had limited space. Say we had like 3 big editorials and a cover story. And as we all know, it's a lot of it is dictated by our advertisers. It's not usually the small indie brands. They never find a space. They find a small mention in a news page. Whereas here, they're getting someone who's inherently stylish, hopefully. I'm referring only to those, not the ones who aren't. And, wearing their clothes and making them look even cooler than their lookbooks. They also, there's a whole industry that's grown around it. It's not just the person in front. They're the coolest managers, makeup, hair has grown, little studios. So I think the entire industry has been given a huge boost. So I think it's here to stay. I think it's here to grow. But like everyone mentioned, we will be seeing a more genuine love for people that have something unique to say. And the cookie cutter ones who are all wearing the same dresses and same makeup, we'll be like, ciao.
No, I think creator economy is very loosely understood by our country today because of the exposure that we have to commerce. TikTok Shop globally today does probably more sales or equal amount of sales than Amazon, right? So I think I feel more than going back to your previous question, we're very clear this is probably going to become the largest job creation space. We are betting ourselves to at least give 200,000 people jobs. It's simple as that, right? That's our dream vision, where we would probably enable 200,000 people in the next couple of years to have a full-time job, right? We can't just ignore the fact that this could pay salaries upwards of anything between 10 lakhs a year to 10 crores a year. So this is fundamentally, you can look at it from an economy point of view, this is going to be one of the largest job spaces. And like Anaita mentioned, can't be more. Its support market that gets created with it is phenomenal, right? I mean, the number of people who get employed and can build careers around it, it's crazy. I mean, one-man army shoots, edits, studios, cloud studios, it's berserk. And AI is only going to help that. And that's something we can't ignore. So the number of people who can get on this journey tomorrow, you could do a course in less than 4 days and you can understand how to become a great editor. So it's literally that.
Just to add to your point, as in our business, it will be distilled. So the purity will stay and the impurity will evaporate.
Back in 2012, I got a call from Anaita. I had just done my first show. And she was styling Aishwarya Rai Bachchan for an ad. And she asked for this one particular sari. I didn't know, this was when celebrity styling was just starting. And, openly sort of, it was then being said, style by this one. Otherwise, all the celebrity stylists sort of stayed in the background. She called for this one sari. I had no idea what was going to happen. I had no idea what this was for, that this was even done, that, someone called up a designer, called for a sari, and that's how it was. And this sari made it, and she called only, I think, for one option, and of course, Anaita has said that'll be one, so that'll be one. And it was a beautiful image, and it was for an international watch brand. The watch brand is still using that image every Diwali. It's splashed across. My father feels very proud. But that sari then became the Aishwarya sari because it did wonders for us. And everyone wanted that sari in all the colors and everything possible. That was the influence then. Today, an actor may not get you that visibility and that sort of conversion in sales as an influencer might do. So that is the shift that has happened. Also, I think the influencer was then seen and welcomed and let into your homes and into your very private space because they were the real person. They were not that model in your designer's lookbook. They were not the models walking the ramp anymore. They were the people who had bodies like us, looked like us, had same skin issues like us, was not an actor or anybody, but these were people who were just talking to you from their bedroom, and that's why it seemed more relatable. And it was the girl next door, the guy next door, and just talking to you about whatever was personal to them. That's how it started. And I think what you said, just keeping a balance of where you started and the inorganic, organic content, and then coupling with brands that resonate with you and your personality. I think that is the future of it, but it's here to stay.